If you thought our first two segments on Congressman Cory Mills were spicy, buckle up. It's about to get even crazier.
I am not exaggerating when I say of all the stories I've ever worked on, this ranks up there with the wildest. Brought to you today by three letters from a three-letter agency.
And the mainstream media will really take the opposite side on Trump on every single issue. We already know that. This time, outlets are saying that Trump's claims of a genocide in South Africa are made up.
Yes, because apparently phrases like kill the white farmer need context. Very nuanced.
Of course they do. Blaze News, The Mandate, starts right now. Good evening, Patriots. I'm Jill Savage, joined as always by Blaze News editor-in-chief Matthew Peterson.
Heck of a day, Jill. This is going to be a fun one.
It is. Congressman Cory Mills is under fire. Over the past few months, Blaze News has uncovered a series of stories that raise serious questions about his past, his credibility, and whether he's been honest with his voters. So let us get you caught up on this story.
Look, we're just asking a lot of questions about some seriously strange things. First, there was a curious story about his marriage in 2014, due to the research of Blaze News' own Jill Savage. I've heard of her. We discovered that when Mills married his wife, Rana al-Sadi, the officiant of their wedding was a radical mufti named Muhammad al-Hanoudi at a radical Virginia mosque. It was called the Al-Qaeda Mosque because of well-documented ties to radical Islam. So this raised eyebrows not just because of the mosque reputation, but because Mills publicly identifies as a devout Christian. In a phone call with our own Peter Giedel, Mills acted like asking him who married him and what his religion was out of bounds. And that's all Peter asked. It was very strange, and it brought my interest to the story. He was up in arms and talking about suing us for asking basic questions like who married him and what religion he was. Anyhow, in response, he said he's always been Christian, but he did this to make it easier for his wife to travel safely back to Iraq.
So now Mills's girlfriend is Sarah Raviani. She's an Iranian-American activist. And after our story came out, she went to the Daily Mail that weekend, and she said that everything in the Blaze News article was entirely untrue because she prays with Mills privately. He attended her church with her family, so there's no reason to pretend around her. And that, okay, maybe, except for the fact that 5 of Mills's former colleagues told me and others here at Blaze News a different story. They said to me personally that they had told that Cory Mills, on a phone call with the one man that went on the record with us, he said, Cory Mills called me on the phone around 2013, 2014, and he said that he converted to Islam at the time of his wedding. Now, Mills denies that, but all the conflicting stories are piling up.
Yeah, it's worth noting that many of those people didn't go on the record about the fact that he had told them he converted back then because they were afraid of reprisal, which I also found very strange and maybe even troubling. Then there's his military background, and so Mills has repeatedly promoted himself as a decorated warfighter. He told people he's an Army Ranger. He said he was blown up twice during his time as a security contractor overseas. He put these things into his campaign ads. But this version of events, his version of events, has been disputed by veterans who served with him. Blaze News was told that Mills was never a Ranger, and we couldn't find any record of that, along with many other things, and that his claims about injuries aren't true. Many people came forward and they seemed very angry about the way he'd been presenting himself over time. He told Peter Giedel, our own Peter Giedel, that he got a concussion in the first explosion, and then he admitted he was not injured to Peter in the second explosion. And then he also called our report a hit piece, a report on a stolen and threatened legal action. We didn't even have a report out at the time, by the way, when he called us and rambled for 50 minutes. He was saying, whatever you're doing is a hit piece and threatened legal action from the start.
And yes, it actually gets crazier than this because now it actually gets even more concerning. In March, as part of the investigation, I contacted 2 people who were on a podcast questioning Mills's military record about stolen valor. So myself and others on our team, we began reaching out, right? We just wanted to see what is happening here. And their testimonies were the basis of the Stolen Valor article that MP just walked through, and we published it this week. So we've learned now that a Florida-based FBI agent has also contacted at least 3 of our sources that we put out in that Stolen Valor story. She was asking what they knew about Mills in the first one, in the Stolen Valor aspect of the story. And then she decided that she wanted to move on to Mills and his business dealings. Now, this agent even offered one person money to become a paid FBI informant. And that raises huge questions. So was this a sanctioned FBI investigation, or was someone inside the Bureau using federal resources to protect Cory Mills or intimidate our reporters?
We're going to get into this with Steve Baker in a minute, but we'll get the details out of the way first. Look, the FBI, in a very rare move, made a statement to Blaze News saying, "We are not aware of the conduct in question, but will review the matter immediately." And this is May 16th. As always, any unethical behavior will be addressed swiftly and appropriately. And then the spokesperson added, senior leadership was made aware of the situation.
So that's a pretty good recap of what we've covered so far. So now let's bring in Blaze News investigative journalist Steve Baker. So Steve, you've had such an important role in this as well. So let's get right into this FBI story. So what did the sources think this FBI agent was up to?
Well, the sources originally thought that this FBI agent was bringing their dreams to fruition. And their dreams, of course, was anywhere from months to years of their own personal work in compiling and the evidentiary record of stolen valor of Cory Mills. And of course, these are individuals who, this is a very passionate issue for them. And of course, anybody that has honorably served in the military, it's a very passionate issue for them. And so as a result of that, they felt like that after going through various levels of trying to get this to the appropriate authorities, especially those who were speaking to the Federal Department of Law Enforcement, FDLE, in Florida, and by the way, I haven't even told you guys that yet today, but I've been in touch with FDLE now 2 or 3 times in the last couple of days, and they're actually assisting us, believe it or not. But that's I've had too much to even keep you fully updated on. So after having given all of this information over to FDLE, because there is going to be going into law now a brand new felony statute about stolen valor as a state law in Florida. So this has become very important to Florida and very important to these Florida residents as well. And of course, because this is a Florida-based congressman, the 7th District of Florida, Cory Mills. So after dealing with FDLE and handing all of that over, and then 2 or 3 months passed, or maybe 4 months, and then they were contacted by the FBI, an FBI agent by the name of Shay Talley Bradley, who positioned herself as saying that this case about Cory Mills and his stolen valor had been referred to her. Now, she didn't say who it was referred to them by, but those individuals that we're talking about, our 3 main sources in this story, all assumed that this must be a referral from the FDLE up to the federal level, because there's a federal statute against stolen valor as well. So that they became even more excited, and they just began gushing out all the information they had, trying to send over documents. They had multiple phone calls with this agent. They had email exchanges, many text exchanges with this particular agent, until eventually, as they were getting closer to maybe giving everything that they wanted to, the agent started telling them to back off. And in fact, for a couple of our sources said, whoa, don't send me anything anymore. To another of our sources, she said, don't send me any documents to my official FBI email address. And then to yet another, or actually the same one I just referred to, she said, look, the FBI is really no longer interested in the stolen valor issue. What do you know about his business dealings? At this point, this confluence of kind of reticence and changing of her approach with these sources made our sources begin to doubt about whether this was even a real agent or not. only one of those sources had ever met her in person and actually seen her badge. And in those circumstances, the agent approached our source solo. In other words, there was not a partner agent with her when she approached her. Actually, showed up at her doorway, and then had a sit down at a local Starbucks for a couple of interviews, but never ever seemingly doing things the normal way that you would expect the FBI to do. In other words, show up with a partner. She never took notes. She never recorded the interviews. With any of our sources, she never recorded the interviews. And then, of course, as I began to look at this thing, after you guys asked me to come on and to look at the Cory Mills case at large, I just started zooming in on this one particular thing as it became more and more evident to me that this agent, and I don't know another or a better way to do it, but I had the impression, the feeling that she was operating rogue or off book, or certainly not sanctioned, probably not a real open case file. There were just too many things that were wrong. We've learned much more since then, the most glaring of which is how rare it is for the FBI now, and especially in the last 7 or 8 years, to even do a stolen valor investigation at all, and extremely difficult to do one on a sitting U.S. congressman. That would require so many levels of approval. It would absolutely have to go to the absolute top of the Hoover building, to the 7th floor. This approval would be sitting on the director and the deputy director's desk. It would be sitting on the chief counsel's or general counsel's desk of the FBI, and it would also require additional approval from the Department of Justice and the Attorney General herself. So that is why that this began to be a very suspicious situation with this particular agent. And as we began to dig in and peel back the layers, it became more and more and more evident that she was in fact operating rogue.
Well, we're going to get into more, admittedly speculation about what the heck she was doing. But first, we should be noted as well, right? She did not contact all the people whose names she was given. She was gathering information from these sources about who might have information on Mills, but she didn't contact all those people.
No, this is one of the most suspicious aspects of this. If you are an agent who has been assigned to actually get to the bottom of the stolen valor question related to, in this case, Congressman Cory Mills of Florida, then once you are handed the names by these researchers, and these are people that that are concerned about our sources, they're concerned about this circumstance with stolen valor, but they weren't necessarily prime sources. And what that means is the actual men that were on the battlefield in these controversial or contested incidences in which it is alleged that the congressman either exaggerated or created his own acts of heroism and daring do out of whole cloth. And so the actual prime sources, which are many, so we're talking about 5 or 6, that the names that were with not Congressman then, but the soldier Cory Mills back then, over 20 years ago, those names were given to the agent, and the agent never contacted the prime sources. What it became very apparent to me, at least, is all that this particular agent was doing was gathering information about what they knew. And then when she switched and turned from stolen valor and said, really, what I want to know about now is, what do you know about his business dealings? Okay. So it sounded more like a fishing expedition and less of an investigation. And then, of course, as you know, we have sources. We have sources both currently within the FBI. We have sources that are whistleblowers that are famous for doing so. And then we have quite a large handful of FBI agents who have retired from the Bureau, who we have become acquainted with over the last several years through investigations into other issues and other matters. And we began to run these things by them and meet with them. And I was sitting with a retired FBI agent just yesterday in Tampa, Florida, who told me that the statement that Blaze Media received from the FBI is the most stunning and unprecedented statement he has ever seen in his over 20-year career with the FBI. Now he's retired. And then just today, I got a call from another retired FBI agent who read our story this afternoon, and he just kept saying, wow, oh, wow, just wow. And he kept repeating himself over and over again, just at that one paragraph that you led at the top of this segment here. Because as you know, the FBI, when they're in the middle of an investigation, whether investigating a congressman, whether they're investigating a journalist, whether they're investigating our sources, and legitimately so if they were, or whether they were investigating anything else, we know what their pat answer is. Sorry, we cannot comment on an ongoing investigation right now.
So, Steve, this basically is this is very likely an off-the-books investigation by this FBI agent. They would know, or they wouldn't not know, if they were sicking her on a congressman, as you say. So, given that, one of the most disturbing aspects of this that we haven't talked about yet is that she offered one of these people to become an informant, a woman who runs the Cory Mills Watch site. They were obviously opposed to him politically in the primary a couple years ago. And she offered her to be an informant, and very disturbing that she said, I need you to spy on a lady, and there's only one woman whose name was given to her.
That's right. Keep your hand down, Jill.
Yeah, no. So I actually was talking to one of our sources on March 31st. And then this incident that MP just described of this woman meeting with the FBI agent happened on April 11th, just 12 days later. My source had told me, wow, you have so much information about this guy. You have stuff that I don't even know about. I think it would be good for you. Would you mind if I handed your contact information over to this FBI agent? And I said, absolutely, whatever I can do to help, because there are so many things that don't add up in this story. So if I can be of help in any way, I'm happy to do it. And here we are, as you say, Steve, with some circumstantial evidence that person, that other female, might just be me.
Might just be you. As a matter of fact, what was very interesting about this is this particular source, again, this is a Florida-based source. So this is the only one that of our sources that the agent in question, Agent Tally Bradley, was looking into, that actually lived in the Orlando area, where she is based out of the Orlando resident agency of the FBI, which also happens to be the district that Cory Mills represents in Florida. And so this particular source named in our story, she runs a website called CoryMillsWatch.com, has been compiling and gathering all of this information from numerous sources about the stolen valor issues and other issues as well related to Cory Mills. And so when she was approached by the agent and asked, first of all, for a personal sit-down meeting, she was ecstatic. She has no reason to lie or make this up. As I said earlier, it's like all of her work was coming to fruition. I mean, the FBI is wanting to have access to everything we've compiled and to what we're so passionate about here. And so she was excited to do so. And then in the second Starbucks meeting with Agent Tally Bradley, she was, first of all, then switched and flipped from it being a stolen valor thing, being told by the agent, the stolen valor thing, there's not enough there, and the FBI is going to drop that, and we're going to move on to an inquiry about his business dealings. And it was during that second meeting on April 11th with our source that the agent actually asked her if she would be willing to be a confidential human source in this process of investigating, Cory Mills, she thought. And she actually agreed to it. She, exuberantly again agreed, said, yes, whatever it takes, whatever I need to do to, to bring Cory Mills down, I'm willing to do it. And then the agent said, well, then would you be willing to go undercover to do so? Because there's another lady that we would like for you to help us look at. And obviously, once again, I'll reiterate, there's no reason for our source to make this up, because she again agreed. Yes, I would be happy to do that. And she was told that she would be paid for this work as well.
Right.
And so
well,
the April 11th meeting was over, and she never heard from the agent again.
Yeah, and as far as we know, again, only one woman's name was given to her by our sources, at least, and that person was named Jill Savage. So to be continued, but we've just buried the lead the entire time here because we have not shown what you did today when you went and asked this agent what she knows. Let's watch this.
Sir. Hey, how are you?
I'm doing very well.
Very well. So, you're also an FBI agent, aren't you?
I don't know, sir.
Well, I would be curious as to what your thoughts are on the current Bongino Cash Patel administration.
I don't have any, sir. I appreciate it.
You don't have any comments on that whatsoever?
No, sir.
Are you aware that Blaze Media just came out with a story about you today and your relationship to Congressman Cory Mills?
I still have no idea what you're talking about, sir.
You have no idea what I'm talking about. Is it true that you tried to recruit a source as an undercover operative to investigate a Blaze Media journalist?
Sir, I still have no idea what you're talking about.
You have absolutely no idea what I'm
But
talking
I
about.
appreciate you coming, and I thank you so much.
You have...
Well, no idea what you're talking about. Apparently, Steve, we got 60 seconds to wrap this up. Tell us about what that was like and what you're thinking.
Yeah, very quickly, she was actually the keynote speaker at a Memorial Day event here in Central Florida, and we showed up with a couple of friendlies that we have, and that's pretty much all I can say about who they are, and they assisted me in filming this. We were very respectful. We did not interrupt the meeting. We waited till long after it was over, and then we just followed her outside, and then we followed her path, as you saw, and were very respectful. We did not want to disrupt what obviously is a very special day for our veterans, and so we had no intention of doing that. But we felt like these questions needed to be asked, and you notice that I purposely asked a couple of questions in a manner that were not even asked in our story, just to see how she would respond. I was maybe a little bit more provocative in telling her that we were writing a story about her relationship with Cory Mills. Well, her relationship technically to Cory Mills is the fact that she has been investigating allegedly him with our sources all the way back to November of last year. That's her relationship with him that we can confirm 100%. I have a feeling that the relationship there goes much deeper.
I look forward to getting more of these answers because, Steve, every time we pull on one thread, things get much more interesting.
Indeed.
Don't go anywhere. We'll be back with more right after this. Well, by the time the show wraps up, another family farm could be shut down, and it's not from a lack of hard work. It's because all the meat at the grocery store is imported from overseas. That's right. Most of that grass-fed beef is from overseas, and shoppers have no idea. That's why you need to shop at goodranchers.com. You know it's all 100% American, born, raised, and harvested, and you're actually supporting family farms. So switch to Good Ranchers because Good Ranchers right now, they're tariff-proof. We know that. Everything's made in America. Grocery store prices can be unpredictable, but Good Ranchers stays consistent. And when you subscribe, you'll get your choice of free meat for life, and you can choose between Wagyu burgers, hot dog, bacon, or wings in every box, plus an extra $40 off with my code Jill. So visit goodranchers.com today. It's goodranchers.com, code Jill. Good Ranchers, American meat delivered.
On this vote, the yeas are 215, the nays are 214, with one answering present. The bill is passed.
Look, it turns out Congress will get work done. All you have to do is threaten them to make them stay in D.C. over Memorial Day weekend. But Trump can't breathe a sigh of relief just yet. His big, beautiful bill still has to survive the much swampier Senate. So here to break down all of this, of course, is our D.C. correspondent, Chris Bedford. So, Chris, we see it. Speaker Johnson's out there. He's calling for the Senate to pass this bill quickly. What are the odds that that is going to happen for Speaker Johnson?
0.
I knew you were going to say that.
They have no intention of passing anything quickly. The Senate isn't completely an island. They understand that the House of Representatives has done what Mike Johnson called crossing the Grand Canyon on a tightrope made with dental floss, and they don't care. Each senator, not so much an island, the Senate is more of a bunch of individual islands. Senators, on account of their number, that's just 2 from every state, wield quite a bit more influence on average in their chamber than any one member of the House of Representatives typically does. Therefore, they don't play that well with others. And I've got a cool Beltway brief coming out about this tomorrow, an explainer for everyone and exactly what to sort of expect. Let's talk about it right now, because there's a lot of different big personalities just on the Republican side. Remember, we're only dealing with Republicans here. This is not a normal Senate bill that requires a 60-vote threshold. They're passing this through reconciliation, which adds a whole bunch of rigmarole and rules to the process, but means they only need 51 senators to pass it. But even on the Republican side, there are a lot of different personalities, and they're all going to want to add their little stamp. Now, speaking generally, the Senate virtually never improves a bill. They always take things that come out of the House of Representatives and make them worse. Maybe the only example I can think of otherwise was Obamacare repeal, which they actually did make better. But in general, they don't do a good job of this sort of stuff because they just take their own little things and their own pet issues and they put them on there. And they usually don't care what the House of Representatives cares about the whole matter. However, I think the weight of how difficult this was, combined with the pressure the president will bring, will subdue some of these senators. But right now, talking to some members of the president's team who, along with House staffers and congressmen themselves, this morning took a much-deserved nap before getting straight back to work on these matters, they're expecting trouble. So some of the senators who I've kind of isolated for who to watch in these coming fights, you've got Josh Hawley. Josh Hawley doesn't want Medicaid touched one bit. He's from a low-tax state that can't really bear a lot of the burden. He's from a state that also has a lot of people who are on Medicaid. And he's fashioned himself as a populist kind of defender of these sorts of systems. He doesn't want any changes at all. He was big mad initially about what the House of Representatives was proposing, but they've made some tweaks and they've watered it down, and he's feeling a lot better about that. But there's still more he wants to do. He wants to make sure that nothing gets touched, and he seems to think, at least from the conversations he's had and some of the speeches he's given, that the president has his back on this matter. Now, people I talked to who are both involved in negotiations or simply longtime observers and people who move in and out and advise the House and the Senate are split on how much trouble he's going to make. He gave a press conference Thursday, not really a press conference, walking through the hallway, talking to a gaggle of reporters, where he said he was happy with what the House had done, but you can definitely expect the Senate version to look different from that. Then you got Senator Mike Lee. Senator Mike Lee's main thing has been the REINS Act, and that would subject agency regulations, the new ones that they come up with just on a pen and pad as part of their job every single day to come up with more regulations for Americans. He wants to put that under Senate approval. The House Representatives, because of complicated and arcane rules, was unable to include that, but they put a placeholder in for Mike Lee to just slip it in. Now, the rules of reconciliation make it so that he has to somewhat restrain that. Probably something that his office is working on, I've heard from them, is a measure that would make it so that any regulation estimated to cost the U.S. economy $100 million or more then has to fall under Senate approval. You can't just make these kind of sweeping things like you often see from the EPA, especially under President Barack Obama and also under President Joe Biden. He can probably be satiated, but also keep in mind that Senator Mike Lee, more than most, really enjoys this process. He likes to tinker. He's a tinkerer. So he's going to go in there and he's going to mess with things for sure. The number one senator to watch for trouble right now is Ron Johnson. Ron John. He's big mad. He's as well. He's out there making statements about how this is not a good bill, it doesn't cut enough, it doesn't do this, it doesn't do that. But he also sent out a kind of much overlooked tweet saying, really, the goal is budget neutral. Publicly, though, he's saying, I want to get back to the federal levels of spending we had before the budget skyrocketed under COVID. Unfortunately for Ron Johnson, the only place in the entire planet where that proposal sounds incredibly unreasonable is Washington, D.C., where he happens to reside and wield power. Susan Collins, Lisa Murkowski, they're not going to want to go back. And you know why? You know how you can tell? Because they never did. They didn't in the budget. They didn't last year. They didn't the year before. There's no appetite in the Senate to actually go back. They don't like to give back money. But he's going to need a bomb. He's going to need something that shows that there's more bite to this bill, that there's more spending cuts in this bill, that he's actually able to get over this finish line. Then you have someone like Senator Rand Paul, who I actually think is a little bit like Thomas Massie in some ways. He doesn't really have a huge amount of influence anymore, at least at this current stage of his career. He used to. He had a big influence in Obamacare repeal, which didn't succeed. He doesn't really wield a lot of influence in negotiations because no one expects him to even be able to get to a yes. He's just going to be a no. So why negotiate with a guy who's not negotiating in good faith? You feel like he's going to virtue signal in the end. And that term, virtue signaling, came from Rand Paul allies. I mean, granted, they're ones who are clear-eyed about this whole thing, but this is from friends. So this is not just rhino speak. This is people saying, all right, I know you're going to vote no, unless maybe you're the 50th vote or the 51st vote. Then a lot of pressure is going to come down on you. Then we'll see exactly how far that virtue is going to take you. Are you still Dr. No on this? Are you going to be a full Thomas Massie, or are you going to play ball? So then what happens with all of that, ideally, is it goes to conference. The House of Representatives sends its leaders of the family. The Senate sends its leaders of the family. The White House usually sits in, and they hammer out these differences into something that that they hope to God, pleases both chambers. Then they go back and they say, guess what, guys? Reconciliation bill's back. Everyone back to work. And both chambers have to vote on this again. Now, the House of Representatives has a vacation for a week in June. The Senate does not. Granted, they only work like 2.5-day work weeks in the first place, but they do not have that vacation. So their timeline that they're currently thinking is about 3 weeks of going back and forth and tweaking this and talking about it, and then being able to vote before it goes to reconciliation, before everyone in Washington, D.C. leaves town once again for July 4th for a week. And then you've got a couple more weeks after that for conference and final votes and the big fighting that's going to take before everyone leaves town for even longer for August recess. So it's kind of easy to lose track of it when the battle is so big as the House battle for reconciliation. It takes so many months that this is literally just D-Day. And D-Day was hard. This is a major landing. It was difficult to get this far. Now there's something really physically that you can hold and words that you can read that you can actually negotiate on, which is so much easier than everyone saying, well, you put out a number, you put out a number, no, you put out a number. Now they've got something. They're going to tinker with it. The landing is finished, but there are many more fights before you take Berlin.
Progress, but not even close to there yet. I see. No. There are so many things to talk about. I don't want to spend a lot of time on this next one, but I'm curious, in the midst of all of this, I mean, is this a win for Mike Johnson? We have discussed, multiple times on this show, the ups and downs of the speaker, over time. And I mean, he can't help but come out of this saying, I mean, he is taking a victory lap, as you mentioned. Can't help but saying this is a win for him in what was a difficult situation. So some props have to be given because they did get it over the finish line.
Yeah, some props have to be given. There's a lot of cooks here. Mike Johnson's power increases dramatically when the president's standing right next to him, when the president's team is standing right next to him. A lot of key players were not in the room earlier this morning when there was a failed vote. So they actually came together and all the right people were in the room. Speaker Mike Johnson's team was busy putting together their social media posts about how he's cooking and how you got to have a little faith and all this and that. I don't know if he deserves that much credit, but the credit's certainly not zero. It's extremely, extremely, extremely difficult to be Speaker of the House. You don't get powerful speakers anymore. They don't have the stick that they used to. They don't even really have the carrots they used to. They're largely a chaperone on an adult field trip. It reminds me of one time when I had to go on a church retreat, and I was leaving the Holiday Inn they parked us in to go outside for a cigarette, and some chaperone said there's no smoking. All right. Went outside and had a cigarette. That's the way it is for the Speaker of the House. He's dealing with adults. He's not actually in charge of them. And It's just a matter of respect and wrangling and getting the right people in the room. So when he has the ammunition that comes in from the White House, and he has the ammunition of the timeline, and he has the ammunition of Memorial Day coming up, there's a lot of things on his side, and he was able to get it done. He deserves credit there, and his team deserves some credit there.
Well, there's a lot of things going your way right now. Before we let you go, you went on a show with Laura Ingraham last night, and her social media clip had us laughing. Let's take a look.
I have my dear friend Chris Bedford, who's an incredible journalist, in the studio tonight. And I'm going to ask him a really important question. Everyone wants to know this. How the heck do you stay in such good shape? I mean, you have a young child. You're, fairly, I'm going to say newly married, but not, you're young. But you look like a, football player. How do you do it?
Well, thanks, Laura. I found out that there's no time during the day or the night, so you have to do it before the sun rises.
Ooh, what time? We talking?
5 a.m. wake up.
5 a.m. And what are you doing?
School drop off. We do cycles, lifting, bench presses. You have to hit the bar, and then cardio. And there's some funny ones. A lot of crunches.
Okay, I was gonna say I knew you lifted heavy weights because there's no way you get that strong by just doing the regular deal.
The new Dad Bod, brought to you by one and only Chris Bedford.
Why aren't you selling supplements at this point? I don't understand what you're doing. There should be a short book, a booklet. I can explain how to do this online.
Else.
I basically floated home after that conversation. I was on cloud 9, feeling pretty good. I got home and my wife giggled about the whole thing and said, "Honey, make me a martini and cook up dinner, please. I know that you're really important." And the funny thing is, I went back to the gym for the first time in way too long, about 7 weeks ago, and it's been really fun. It's been an absolute blast. But I told Sarah at the beginning, from the first day I came back from the gym, I said, "I'm a fitness influencer right now, so you have to kind of talk to me like a fitness influencer. We need to buy some healthier foods." And she just rolled her eyes. But now, and it's officially on Laura Ingraham's Instagram account, it has arrived. You can manifest it, kids. That's what the Gen Z kids say, right? You can manifest these things.
I'm waiting for your Instagram videos from the gym. That's what I'm waiting for.
I think that's what everybody's waiting for. You know what? We're going to let you ride through the entire weekend. We're going to have the, I'm sorry, much younger and better looking Rebecca Zelko on the show tomorrow. True. But we do eagerly anticipate your Monday comeback here on the show. Have a great weekend. And you know what? You deserve that.
Thanks, guys. I can't wait to see you. Have a great weekend. We'll talk Monday.
All right. Well, don't go anywhere. We'll be back to wrap up this show right after this. Well, this Memorial Day weekend, there's a story about grit, redemption, and old-fashioned family values. It's going to hit the big screen, and you don't want to miss it. It comes from Angel Studios. You know them from The Sound of Freedom and The King of Kings. Now they have The Last Rodeo. It's an action-packed story of a retired rodeo legend who straps back in for one last ride, and he risks it all to save his grandson. He's the oldest rider to ever enter the arena, and the movie is about healing broken bonds, facing the past, and proving that real courage means fighting for the people you love. It's raw, it's heartfelt, and it just might leave you tearing up underneath that cowboy hat. Now, theaters are selling out fast, so hurry up and order your tickets now. You can go to angel.com/Jill to grab your seats for The Last Rodeo. It's in theaters tomorrow, Friday, May 23rd. Everybody go see The Last Rodeo and get your tickets today at angel.com/Jill. That's angel.com/Jill. There's been a lot of buzz surrounding South Africa after Donald Trump accused its government of genocide yesterday. A CNN international correspondent attempts to explain that the video of the South African leaders saying, "kill the Boers," which are the farmers, doesn't literally mean kill the farmers. People, as idiots, are merely lacking historical context. Watch.
For people who don't have a historical context, it does potentially appear more literal.
It is an inflammatory song, without a doubt. And many in South Africa, even black South Africans, don't think it should be sung in a post-apartheid world, 30 years plus after apartheid. But there are many who grew up under those years of white minority rule who understand the historical context of this song, "Kill the Boer, Kill the Farmer," that Julius Malema has made popular again. It sort of fell into disuse. It's not been that commonly sung after the end of apartheid in 1994, but it's brought it back again to reanimate the issue of the majority of land in South Africa still being owned by white farmers.
We're just too dumb to understand what's going on. Are we bigoted? Are we racist? What one is this one? What does this fall under?
What people are noticing, and a lot of people are noticing lots of things these days, is that this is brought to you. This idea that we need to be, it's nuanced. There's historical context when it comes to chanting and singing a song about killing white people. The context that needs to be brought in, it's very complicated, right? These are the same people who brought you the concept of a microaggression, of how you're being racist without realizing it. These are the same people who write articles every day about how everything from red meat to weightlifting is racist when it comes to health, right? Certain colors are racist. Certain movies you've never even thought are racist. You know you're racist. They're the ones saying this all the time, right? And so all the nuance in the world all of a sudden needs to be brought to bear on the fact that, you can't believe your own eyes or ears when you hear someone say, kill the Boers, kill the white farmers. It doesn't pass the credibility test anymore. And I think the great thing about what's happening is that it's now out in the open just how ridiculous these people are. You can see in that clip, by the way, that the gentleman she's talking to, even he has to give more nuance to her ridiculousness by saying, well, yeah, actually, there's a lot of people on both sides here who think that's a pretty terrible song and probably shouldn't be singing it. But if you understand the history of this conflict, let me get this straight. Every conflict in the history of the human race has two sides to it. Therefore, all of them need historical context. Well, if you want to know why these people hate these people, it's actually a little more complicated than they're just bad. They had reason to hate them because of X, Y, and Z injustices. That's the history of war. That's the history of every genocide, every sort of conflict. So they've reduced themselves to the absurd, and now we're at the point where really all you can do is laugh, and I think they're making fools of themselves with segments like this happening daily when it comes to the South Africa genocide.
The legacy media, they still have Trump derangement syndrome. They can't take the fact that Donald Trump is sitting there in the Oval Office and he's telling world leaders just exactly how it is. They can't handle that. Don't go anywhere. We'll be back with your replies right after this. Well, Donald Trump sitting in the Oval Office telling world leaders exactly how it is, that's what winning looks like. We love winning. We know the momentum is shifting, but we do have a long ways to go. And that's why we need you to join us here at Blaze TV, because we have the good reporting out there. We have the stories that the corporate media won't touch. Cory Mills, anyone, jump on board. When you subscribe, you're not just watching Blaze TV, you're standing with a movement. And right now, it's just $8 a month when you use the code BNT at checkout. So go to blazetv.com/BNT right now. Use that code BNT to save $20 off an annual plan. Let's keep winning together. Blaze TV, unfiltered, unafraid, on demand. One of the trending items on X today, a federal judge has blocked Trump's executive order to dismantle the Department of Education because we can't have nice things. So I asked you on X, is there anything a judge can't do? Are we actually going to get rid of the Department of Education? Let's get to some of the best replies. Heretic Dave said, all of the lawfare is delaying action, and it's working. There's a large swath of America that voted for this administration that are still waiting for some kind of accountability, that are sick of waiting and will likely skip voting in the midterm. So not only is it affecting the here and now, but he's saying also the future, MP.
Well, I mean, I think he makes a very good point. This is why the Trump administration and its advocates, if they're gonna surpass this, they're gonna have to make the case. No, the midterms are essential for us to actually finish the job. But he's right. Lawfare is delaying tactic. It's the left's tactic, and they're just pouring it on thick at historic levels, and it's really shameful right now.
Amuse rounds out our replies today. He says SCOTUS reversed his last injunction against Trump, and that was last month. So he doesn't care if they reverse him. He's on a mission to stop Trump. Also, we really ought not have so many foreign-born judges. There are a lot. That's something that's coming up time and time again.
Let me take the controversial bit first. This has been obvious to most people in every country that's ever existed for, however long human history has been around, that it takes time to assimilate and become part of another country. So this is not a joke. It's not a, racist or insensitive thing to say. It's an obvious thing to say and to wonder about. And it's clear that Roberts is part of, and the other part of what he said, it's clear that Roberts in the court, this is their tactic too. They just want to delay. They don't want to actually answer any of these questions. So there you have it.
MP, with the time that we have left, let's go back to our lead story of the day, Cory Mills and a potential rogue FBI agent. And we say that potential because we don't actually have all of the answers right now, but we will definitely get to the bottom of this.
Yeah, it's unfortunate the congressman didn't choose to respond to this story. I think he's probably not going to respond to us for a while. I don't think he likes the stories we put out. But we did publish as much as we could of his 50-minute interview the first time we talked to him. This time, this is very strange, right? Because the odds are this is a rogue agent, given what we've seen so far and haven't seen from the FBI. And if that's the case, then she is asking about the Cory Mills story either because she's going after a congressman on her own, which is an enormous problem. If you're Cory Mills, you're saying, what the hell is this? Why is an FBI agent sniffing around about me? On her off hours, presenting herself as an FBI agent, that's when she's not actually conducting an official investigation. That's terrible. She should lose her job. And I would agree. She should lose her job if she's presenting herself, which she did, right? She presented herself as conducting an official FBI investigation to private American citizens exercising their God-given rights to question their leaders. So either she was going after Mills, which is bad, or she was gathering information about our sources and about all these people who are asking questions of the congressman, and that is bone-chilling. If you have an FBI rogue agent out there looking to, create informants, et cetera, to gather information about people questioning a United States congressman, just going about their business, right, their lawful business, that is bone-chilling, and that's a real problem. So either way, this is a very significant story that requires action and requires, more than anything else, answers right now.
And, the FBI has been taking a lot of dings lately, but I will reiterate what Steve Baker has already said on the show today, that the statement that they gave us, as he said, when he told some former FBI officials, it was unprecedented, right? He said everybody, their jaws dropped, that they actually came through and gave us as much, and honestly, like a little bit of context around it, and also came back and added that senior counsel was made aware.
Yeah, it implies that it shouldn't take that long to figure out his official investigation. So this implies that this was a rogue, a rogue agent asking around and gathering information, again, on our Blaze News sources, and asking people to become informants to ask about anyone investigating Cory Mills. So this is not going to go anywhere. This story really has legs, and it's extremely disturbing because this is exactly the kind of thing the American people just voted against. The weaponization of government, except in this case, she was operating on her own. So who was she working for, and why was she doing what she was doing? We don't know, but we need to find out.
We will get all of those answers because you can count on us to continue on with this narrative. We definitely will. Thanks for watching tonight, everyone. We'll see you back here tomorrow.